All right, so good morning, good afternoon. It's again a pleasure to welcome you to this second event in our series, which is directed to IOI alumni, but also to all interested early career ocean professionals worldwide. And the intention behind these webinars, which we have been offering, I think, since 2023, is to continue bringing to your attention new developments in ocean issues. So focus spotlight on specific topics and specific developments, knowing full well that because of your background, you're already well aware and professionals in your own right, in your own field. So without further ado, I give the floor to Cosmin, our moderator today, who is also at IOI headquarters, but also an alumnus of the IOI himself, and our very talented and expert speakers to broach together and go through together the topic of today's CPD webinar. So I augur you an interesting time. I invite you all to contribute to the debate and Q&As by posting your question in our chats. We'll be able to bring them to the attention of the moderator and to the speakers. So, Cosmin, it's all in your hands now.
Thank you very much, Antonella. I also extend a warm welcome to everyone to today's IOI Alumni CPD webinar, which is entitled Ocean at a Crossroads, Key Insights from the Third UN Ocean Conference. As Antonella was saying, this is our second webinar in this year's series, and it comes at a particularly timely moment. Just a few weeks ago, the global ocean community gathered in Nice for the third UN Ocean Conference, which was a critical milestone for advancing SDG 14 and the broader ocean governance agenda. At IOI, we strongly believe that outcomes from such high-level events and dialogues must reach not only the policymakers, but also the wider community of ocean professionals. Basically, all of you listening to us today. And of course, especially early career ocean experts and practitioners as well. This is why we're bringing these key discussions to you today in real time through hopefully what's going to be a very interactive event. Today's session will focus on three key themes that emerged from UNOC 3. First of all, science policy cooperation, capacity development for early career ocean professionals, and an inclusive blue economy. We've invited three outstanding panelists today with us to guide us through these complex but urgent topics. So, without further delay, I would like to introduce our first speaker of today, which is Rebecca Lahl, who is the head of the Office for Knowledge Exchange at the Leibniz Center for Tropical Marine Research, ZMT, and also serves as director of IOI Germany. Her work focuses on improving the interface between science, policy, and practice, ensuring that knowledge leads to action. Today, she will share her perspective on the importance of interdisciplinarity, cooperation, and knowledge exchange in advancing global ocean goals. And Rebecca, I know you have also prepared a little bit of a summary of the outcomes of UNOC. So please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Cosmin. I hope you can see my slides now. So yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks for the invitation to, and also the warm welcome by Antonella and by you, Cosmin. It's really a pleasure to be here. And I wanted to present my takeaways from my visit in Nice at the UN Ocean Conference 3. And I collated them under the term, the sentence "From Science to Action, Bridging Science, Policy and Practice Through Knowledge and Capacity Sharing." And Cosmin, you already introduced me. Thanks for that. I just wanted to let you know that I work for ZMT in Bremen in northern Germany, and we are an institute that exclusively works in the tropics, so with middle and income countries. We do research, but we focus with our mission explicitly also on capacity development and knowledge exchange. And that's also my role at ZMT. So I support knowledge exchange, but I also support trainings, particularly on transdisciplinarity and co-design and engaging with policy. And here I wanted to quickly revisit the outcomes of UNOC 3, which, just to get us all on the same page, concluded with the Nice Ocean Action Plan, which constitutes of two elements. First of all, of a political declaration that is titled Our Ocean, Our Future, United for Urgent Actions. And it calls for concrete steps in marine conservation and combating climate change, combating marine pollution, but also mobilizing finances and supporting knowledge exchange and capacity development. The second element of the Nice Ocean Action Plan is a list of significant voluntary commitments that have been made by member states, but also by other actors, which include funding, also new initiatives and coalitions, or newly designated marine protected areas. Important to know is that while the political declaration is legally not binding, it can still influence state behavior and contribute to the development of international norms or customary law. And I think this conference has kind of a informal nature, so nothing has been really negotiated there, but it was a pacemaker towards creating momentum, maybe forming alliances for other ocean governance processes that are being negotiated in the near future. So it was really nice to see good outcomes on other negotiations and processes, such as the BBNJ agreement. So in total, 19 states ratified the BBNJ agreement in the margins of the conference. And that means that only 10 more ratifications are needed. So together, 60 ratifications for the agreement to enter into force. And I think that's a really nice outcome, since it's the basis for designating marine protected areas in the high seas. And it also includes mechanisms to support capacity development and the transfer of marine technology. We could also see a lot of commitment against deep sea mining and towards a moratorium for deep sea mining. And there were also a lot of member states who declared themselves for aiming for a more ambitious plastic treaty with the Nice wake-up call. So over 90 member states signed this declaration. Last year, the negotiations on the plastic treaty failed because mostly the main reason might be that they couldn't agree on a limit for plastic production. So of course, we hope that in August, when it's negotiated in Geneva, that there will be some advancement. There were also member states who accepted the World Trade Organization's agreement on fishery subsidies that addresses harmful subsidies that cause overcapacity in the fishing industry. But as mentioned before, I wanted to focus now on what has been discussed and what the outcomes are of capacity development, and maybe also as the role of science at this conference. And I included some of the paragraphs from the political declaration that again reaffirm that we need to strengthen knowledge exchange, that we need to strengthen science policy, that we need to enhance cooperation. So in all of the themes that were being negotiated in parallel, these topics always came up, and importance was stressed again and again, that these are important to reach our goals. There was one ocean action panel, so in total there were 10, and one was focusing on increasing ocean-related scientific cooperation, knowledge, capacity building, marine technology, and strengthening the science policy interface. And what has been discussed there is pretty much in essence that despite the progress that has been made in capacity development, there are many initiatives. A gap remains in implementation, in coordination, in knowledge flow, and in inclusive action. But it also highlighted that capacity development is more important than ever. As mentioned, there's a lack of coordination, and recognized the importance of ocean observation and data systems, addressing significant knowledge gaps in inclusive and equitable manner, emphasized ocean literacy again, and strengthening the science policy interface, while ensuring that science can act independently and legitimately. So what I wanted to also stress is, for me, this UNOC has been really a living science policy interface. There were a high number of high-ranking scientists who participated in the panels or in the margins of the conference. I included a picture of a colleague from Germany, Antje Bözius. She's the director of the Alfred Redner Institute in Bremerhaven. She was involved in the ceremony opening the conference, stressing the importance of ocean science. The whole conference was embedded in or integrated with the whole UN Ocean Decade, the science we need for the ocean we want, to also advance SDG 14 through and with science that is coordinated by the IOC UNESCO. Before the actual UNOC, there was a One Ocean Science Congress that also concluded with a declaration and calling for more action during UNOC. Also, in the port of Nice, there were quite a lot of very impressive research vessels that were used as kind of these pavilions or side event locations in the harbor. Also, to name that the IPOS was launched during UNOC, so the Intergovernmental Platform on Ocean Sustainability, that will serve also as a science policy interface. I wanted to raise an issue that was being discussed during the conference, often maybe also behind closed doors. So of course, the changing geopolitical situation that also has an effect on ocean research and capacity development. So the world is currently facing turbulent geopolitical times. There's increased tension, uncertainties, and there's maybe some shift also in global power dynamics, which we can feel already, or what we can expect, I think, is that funds are being pulled out by certain states already for international funding, but also nationally, probably funding will be moved towards other priorities of national security concerns, probably towards defense. So there is a lack of funding for research, observation, and capacity development, and it was discussed in Nice. There's to name for the POGO call, no data, no action, that calls for investing in ocean observation to achieve SDG 14. There were also a couple of, or many new initiatives that are trying to address these gaps. There's some initiatives that were launched, were the 10,000 Ships for the Ocean initiative by the World Meteorological Organization and GOOS. There also the Neptune mission on ocean monitoring and exploration, Space for Oceans Alliance, or the Starfish Barometer that we can expect will hopefully have some, create some change. We, ZMT and the IOC UNESCO, we also hosted a side event during the conference that I wanted to mention a couple of takeaways. The side event was called From Strategy to Action, Mobilizing Partnerships for Ocean Capacity Development. And a couple of my takeaways are really that we are starting to rethink and reword capacity development, that it's really about mutual learning and sharing, and this rewording towards sharing capacities is really important, because language matters, and it shows that there's a different understanding towards more reciprocity. And also what I saw there was that there are so many good initiatives already. And just to mention, on a side note, there are a lot of Ocean Decade actions, and actually over 300 addressing challenge 9 of capacity development. And this is more than any other challenge that is being addressed by Ocean Decade Actions. And I think that also shows us that there's already so much going on, so many initiatives that support capacity development, including, for example, also the courses by the IOI. But they kind of remain, or many of them remain, project-based or time-limited. And it's really also about sustainability and better coordination that we need to embed capacity development also on core strategies and create really a new ecosystem. The side event also focused a lot on the IOC capacity development strategy, and I think that's a good document showcasing what we can do as individuals, but also as organizations and member states to support capacity development. That covers several aspects to develop human resources, so short-term trainings, mentorship, alumni networks, but it also supports actions on improving access to technology, physical infrastructure, data and information, strengthen different global, regional, and national mechanisms, developing ocean research policy, ocean literacy, and resource mobilization. And it also has recommendations on improving coordination and implementation of capacity development initiatives. And one of the recommendations that we stressed in NIS is the need for a forum to exchange. As mentioned, there are over 300 Ocean Decade Actions who are focusing on capacity development. There's a lack of coordination, so a forum, a better exchange would be beneficial to create synergies. Another recommendation is to strengthen equity, inclusion, and decolonialization, ECOPs as change makers, and leveraging as existing programs. So what do I mean when I say strengthening equity, inclusion, and decolonialization? I think it's very important that capacity development strategies, but also projects need to be grounded on principles of equity. So they support geographical representation, inclusive dialogue, and critical reflection. That means we often have to overcome barriers, of course, to be inclusive. One tool to be more inclusive is, of course, the approach of co-design of partnerships and projects to collaboratively work towards a joint objective to together address ocean challenges. And what I also wanted to highlight is the publication by Harden Davies et al., who look at capacity development in the Ocean Decade, and they state that without intentional design, that there's a risk of capacity development becoming tokenistic or perpetuating colonial legacies in science. So it must be reframed as a tool for decolonizing knowledge production and enhancing scientific diplomacy, serving as a channel for soft power and mutual growth. I just quickly wanted to check if I'm still online, because I'm afraid. Cosmin, now am I still online?
All good, Rebecca. Thank you very much.
Because last time I finished up the presentation and then I just realized I was kicked out. So thanks for just checking in with me. As Evgeniia said, ECOPs are central as change makers, and I wanted to stress this as well. This has come out in many of the discussions that we have held. So empowering the next generation for ocean action, and ECOPs are not just mere participants of capacity development. They can really shape capacity development, and it's good if they co-design activities with us. So they need mentorship, hand-on field experience, and practical training alongside classical mobility opportunities. And I think also this practical training is really, really important, and taking part if you can. I know there are limitations and barriers, but something like a UNOC is, of course, really a fantastic opportunity for personal career development. But as mentioned, there are unequal access to opportunities. It's unfair, and I think people who have the opportunity to address these unequal opportunities, are working towards that. Another barrier that was addressed in our side event, for example, is that it can be and not only where you come from is maybe lacking opportunities, but also if you're an ECOP and you're not institutionally affiliated, then you might not access certain programs. And I think Evgeniia also mentioned the Ocean Capacity Development Hub. I wanted to stress that there are existing programs that we need to leverage. So if you're an ocean professional, it is very helpful to be more visible, to register through the Ocean Expert Directory. But also the Capacity Development Hub is a good opportunity, or I mean, can even be better built up to be of more benefit to us, because it's a repository of existing capacity development initiatives, so awards, mentorship programs, funding, and so on. And the Ocean Teacher Global Academy is an online learning platform that is also a resource that is really helpful for capacity development. I wanted to make some personal advertisement. We do offer courses. If you're interested, there's a self-paced online course on the Ocean Teacher Global Academy on co-design for the Ocean Decade. So there you will learn about different elements of co-design on strategic planning, communication, transdisciplinary theory, actor engagement, impact planning, and also fair or ethical research, or how to foster equitable partnerships. We are also offering with IOI a course, a hybrid course that is being hosted at IPB University in Bogor, Indonesia, in July and August, but we have online lectures that are being streamed. So if you're interested, registrations are still open. And if you take a picture of the QR code, it will direct you to the registration link. But of course, you can also write me an email. So with that, I wanted to close and say that I do have mixed feelings about UNOC. I'm at the one hand, I'm amazed. It was personally a really good experience. There were so many voluntary commitments. So there was some feeling of things are moving forward. But of course, it remains to see how things will play out. But what I learned from other high-level speakers is we really have to keep on being hopeful about change. And I think, that's what I wanted to say with closing this presentation. So thanks so much for your attention, and I'll stop sharing my screen.
I'll take a few seconds just to introduce you, Evgeniia. Basically, Evgeniia Kostianaia is the global coordinator of the UN Ocean Decade Endorse Early Career Ocean Professionals Program. With a strong track record in advancing the role of ECOPs across the global ocean agenda, Evgeniia brings a unique perspective on how we can empower the next generation of ocean leaders. Today, she'll speak about practical strategies for building capacity, strengthening networks, and most of all, enhancing meaningful participation for ECOPs. And this is especially in the context of the recent UN Ocean Conference. Evgeniia, over to you.
Thank you, Cosmin, for the introduction. I'm just opening my presentation. Can you please confirm that you see it and that you can hear me well?
All good, Evgeniia.
Thank you.
Yes, thanks.
Okay, thank you. So thank you so much for this invitation and for the introduction. I'm always happy to speak at your events, especially that I'm also an IOI alumnus. So I'll be speaking about really the importance of capacity building and professional development for ECOPs, and especially within the context of UNOC that we just had. So just to briefly introduce the program, we are an officially endorsed UN Ocean Decade action in the format of a program for early career ocean professionals. This is why we are called an ECOP program. And we connect ECOPs to other opportunities, so to funding opportunities, to capacity development opportunities, providing meaningful connections to support one's journey as a ocean professional. This is a brief introduction to our structure. So we work in nodes. We have 6 regional nodes, we're 6 national nodes, 6 interdisciplinary task teams, and 15 endorsed projects from the UN Ocean Decade Calls for Actions. We have members in 166 countries, and we are almost at 7,200 members in our ECOP community. So here you can see a map with all our nodes and coordinators. So the pins in red indicate that we have coordinators and established nodes, and the pins in green mean that there is a node in development, and the pins in yellow mean that there is already someone working on node there, and you can see the information on the page. Okay, so now back to the UN Ocean Conference. And again, I'll be talking about both the Congress and the UNOC because, as Rebecca also explained, One Ocean Science Congress was, yes, a more scientific conference, but it was still a formal part of UNOC. So in terms of the presence of overall ECOPs, and here I mean not ECOPs as members of the program, but overall early career ocean professionals or early career researchers, I feel that this conference had much more ECOPs present, much more events were there, and there was a lot of interest in having ECOPs as parts of the events, as active participants. So this means that organizers of the events were looking for ECOPs to invite them to be speakers, moderators, panelists, which is good. And I think this feeling was shared by many of my colleagues. Like ECOPs were really in many events, and this is good. I also felt that there were a lot of opportunities for capacity building. Capacity building was also discussed in a lot of events. I think many organizers were trying to discuss capacity building in various ways as well. So not only as part of the formal education, but a lot was also dedicated to informal education. There was a whole pavilion in the Green Zone on ocean literacy, which was organized by the Ocean Literacy Office of IOC UNESCO. So they had a whole pavilion working for 2 weeks there, which was called Beyond Borders Pavilion. So that attracted a lot of audience outside of the academic bubble. There were a lot of people, just local people from Nice, families with kids. There were events for kids, especially in the first week of UNOC. So I think that actually opens a lot of space for various pathways for education, for let's say capacity building, or for ocean awareness for various ages. ECOP program had about 20 events that we meaningfully participated or co-organized. So that was about, we had a lot of events on ocean literacy, a lot of events about youth, ECOPs, inclusion, etc., and capacity building. So talking about this, there are still a lot of barriers for capacity building and for knowledge exchange. And we had a specific event, a town hall during the One Ocean Science Congress, to talk about these barriers, and I'll be speaking about it in my next slides. What I heard in many events was that a lot of speakers and panelists, they were highlighting the importance of intergenerational dialogue and intersectoral cooperation and transdisciplinarity. And my personal opinion is that we should not have events only for for ECOPs or for youth, but we should try to integrate ECOPs into the panels and side events with other established professionals, because doing this, ECOPs and youth, they get the experience, they get the new skills of being on a panel with other professionals kind of outside of their bubble. So that enables them to grow, and they get noticed, their research gets noticed. So I think this way they get much better exposure. Then I also wanted to mention the launch of Ocean Matcher and the Ocean Decade Capacity Development Marketplace. Now, this is, to my understanding, both mechanisms are for endorsed actions of the UN Ocean Decade. But if you belong to those endorsed actions, that is some really great steps towards being connected to funders. This is Ocean Matcher, or to capacity development providers. So I think the Ocean Decade Capacity Development Marketplace is still in the beta version, but Ocean Matcher was officially launched, yes. So this is basically a platform for an endorsed action to potentially find funding for their work. Right. So as I mentioned, we had this town hall on capacity development so we called it Capacity Development in the UN Ocean Decade Program, Successes, Achievements and Ways Forward. So there was basically a continuation from our inclusivity side event at the UN Ocean Decade Conference last year in Barcelona. We identified 3 challenges for the uptake of capacity development, which is visa challenges, funding gaps, and language barriers. And now at this town hall, the One Ocean Science Congress, we actually asked our audience in the town hall, in that room, we asked them several questions on these challenges. So the first one was on visa barriers. We heard a lot of stories when people could not attend the conference because of the visa problems. So here's what we got. Do you know someone that could not attend either of the conferences because of the visa issues? So we see that basically half of the room knew someone who could not attend. Like, I know several people who could not attend. And again, yes, many people had visa challenges, and they still could attend. Let's like 1/3. So we see that a lot of people still had problems that they could not overcome, so they could not come. We also discussed potential strategies. We actually asked the audience to come up with them as we were there in the room. So here you can see some of the strategies that were discussed. Then we also discussed the funding gap. So funding is still a huge problem for professionals to attend such conferences, and this is not only for funding for ECOPs, but also for I think many ocean experts from developing countries. So we asked if our audience knew someone who did not manage to attend either of these events, and 1/3 answered that yes, they knew someone. Do you know someone who had funding issues but still managed to join? Again, 1/3 knew of such people. And then we also discussed the so-called funding vacuum or funding gap. So yes, there are certain countries or certain regions that fall into this funding vacuum, meaning that it's hard to find a suitable funding opportunity for them to apply to go to a conference. And again, we discussed the potential solutions, and that would be listing those funding opportunities on the official website of an event. People were talking about choosing more affordable host cities for a conference, and also extending microgrant eligibility criteria, because sometimes those criteria are quite strict. Then we also discussed the language barriers. So we wanted to know whether English was restrictive to participation in conferences. And here again, we saw that there is this problem, but probably that was not prevailing. But it was interesting to see that a lot of people, so 85%, felt disadvantaged by language barriers at some point in their careers. And again, we discussed potential solutions, and that could be use of translation services like AI tools and on Zoom, and discussing other available translation support at conferences. Okay, so now back to the question of strengthening networks at UNOC. We at the ECOP program, once we started to attend all those conferences at the programic level after COVID, we thought that it would be great to gather all those ECOPs who are attending conferences, especially big ones like UNOC. So we started creating WhatsApp groups for support of ECOPs. We started doing that for Lisbon, for UNOC conference in 2022. And at that time, we had 60 or 70 ECOPs in that group. We did the same last year for the UNOC Decade conference, and we had about 150 ECOPs. And then for this year, for ECOPs attending both events or either of the events, so the One Ocean Science Congress or UNOC, we had 550 ECOPs maximum in the group. So that shows, well, I think first the outreach of the program, but also it shows that it looks like there are much more ECOPs attending conferences than they used to. Then we also started, again, the first time we did it for Lisbon, we started with our informal social events, and we started with a network, so a networking walk in Lisbon, and then we basically did informal dinners for UN Ocean Decade Conference, and this year as well. So we heard that this is really something that is helping ECOPs to get to know each other, to connect, and then develop potential cooperation. And it's really a supportive system helping to understand better how a conference works, what you should not miss, announcements of various side events. And I think this is really very important to enable ECOPs to make the most out of such events. Now, here I would like to share some practical strategies for enhancing meaningful participation at large conferences like UNOC. So I would say that one shouldn't look at UNOC or any such big conference as a mere list of events that you absolutely need to attend. But I would look at it as an opportunity to meet people. So a lot of times I heard these comments that people are just overwhelmed with the number of events that are happening sometimes at the same time, and they don't know which to select. So I would say to plan ahead and to understand what your goals are. So people will be dragging the side events will be dragging you into different directions. There will be interesting events here and there, but you need to know what your priorities are and stay with your plan. Usually at such big conferences, things may change very, very fast. There are new opportunities coming on that day, but you need to have your plan. And don't be overwhelmed by all this number of events. I'm sure that you have your priorities, your top interests. You need to stick to them. Then what has worked for me for UNOC is that you should see who you would like to personally meet. Usually people do like to meet other people, especially after having worked online. So I would say use your time wisely to set up these personal meetings in advance, like several weeks before the conference, and invite people for in-person meetings, or whether you want to have to meet a new partner for your project as a programming level, or just ask for some advice. Most probably people will say yes. Well, even if they say no, that's fine, but at least you establish some connection. So I found that it's even a good idea to ask people to have breakfast together and discuss some work, some potential collaboration together, or lunch or dinner. But me personally, I really much enjoyed having working breakfast. It's very practical, and I saw a lot of people doing that. And also another piece of advice for ECOPs is to take up new challenges. So some of my colleagues at the ECOP program, for this UNOC, they had certain engagements that they have never had before, such as the first time being a moderator, and they did a splendid job. So view that as an opportunity to learn something new. So say yes to any opportunity that comes up your way, if that helps you grow and if that provides you with networking opportunities, because that will tremendously help you to grow in your career. So just to mention a few things about knowledge exchange. At the ECOP program, we are doing webinars. So this is just a list of webinars we were doing for the past 3 years. So if somebody wants to join us or share their research, we're always welcome, and we'll be happy to host you. And in terms of facilitating knowledge exchange, another idea that we launched actually at UNOC were these 2 databases of networks, ocean-related networks, and opportunities. So as Rebecca was saying, indeed, there are a lot of opportunities for capacity building. Indeed, in the UN Ocean Decade, there are many actions that are doing amazing job on that. But sometimes it's just hard to find a capacity development or capacity building opportunity very fast. It's somewhere out there on the internet, but unless somebody tells you, it's probably quite hard to find. So in the UN Ocean Decade a few years ago, they also did made this great resource called Ocean CD Hub that consists of a lot of websites of organizations who do capacity building, whether this is providing berths on ships or trainerships or internships or training. So, for example, International Ocean Institute is also listed there as one of the organizations. So we wanted to do something more detailed, so to say. So we launched a database for opportunities with deadlines. So this has several categories. There is a category for funding, jobs, capacity development, calls for actions, and aggregator sites. So if I could ask Cosmin to just share these links, all of these sit on our website. So again, this aligns with this idea that there are a lot of opportunities out there, but it's difficult to find them. And I think the idea is to just try to create at least one of these spaces to collect all this information together. So our view is to have this database as a collaborative effort. So any of you can go there and add an opportunity that you know. And I think as a collaborative effort, that could be a very rich database. You can also check out other resources, such as the database for mentorship programs and database of ocean networks that we also launched at UNOC. And the stakeholder map, our pilot project of stakeholders and initiatives in Japan. And with this, I will end my presentation, and this is our online presence details and my contact details. So if you would like to reach out or have any questions, I'm very happy to connect with you by email and cooperate with you. Thank you so much. Osman, over to you.
Thank you very much, Evgeniia. I think you've very aptly demystified the experience of being at these conferences. And you've also brought an excellent perspective on how critical it is to create intentional spaces for early career ocean practitioners where they can basically grow and connect and ultimately lead. Thank you very much for raising the awareness on training and mentoring, which is available to networks. And yeah, you've highlighted quite a clear roadmap for shaping a more equitable and resilient future ocean governance community. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Kostianaia.
Now we're going to move to our next speaker, who is Jorge Barbosa, who is a Blue Economy advisor at the Water Revolution Foundation, with extensive experience in sustainable development, climate policy, and investment strategies, including his excellent work at the World Bank. Today, Jorge will guide us through innovative approaches to advancing a sustainable and inclusive blue economy, with a particular focus on the outcomes of UNOC 3 and the opportunities that lie ahead for aligning economic development with ocean health and climate resilience. Thank you, Jorge. The floor is yours.
Great. Thank you very much, colleagues. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for the organizing team to put in this together, International Ocean Institution. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen very quickly. Just give me 1 second. Right. Okay, I believe this is sharing. I hope you can see my screen. I'm going to go ahead and start the presentation. I hope you can all see my presentation okay, but please let me know if there's any issues along the way. Again, so I want to discuss very quickly in a very brief format here, sort of the looking beyond aspect beyond UN Ocean Conference 3, right? I want to talk about really catalyzing action and impact on the ground level, at the country and domestic and community level. So briefly, I want to introduce this outline, right? We want to talk about the statistics very briefly across the 3 ocean conferences in 2017, in 2022, and in 2025. I want to do a quick comparison of this over the years. Then I want to talk about some of the noteworthy points from the UN Ocean Conference 3 this year in Nice, and a little bit of the critical analysis around policies and investments specifically, followed by conclusions. Very briefly about me, as our host nicely outlined, I come to you with experience from really both ends, having worked for the World Bank for about 7 years across different countries and regions, directly on the ground, developing programs and innovative solutions, investments, and so on for the blue economy. I have also worked with the United Nations at different levels, and particularly with UNDESA, planning the UN Ocean Conference in 2017 and in 2022. I also made significant contribution in my career to SDG 14, the original concept of this SDG, and have mobilized vast resources as well for blue economy. So to start very briefly, right, we already heard earlier in our discussion some of the overall stats and background information about the ocean conferences. Here is a brief snapshot. At Nice, we had almost 12,000 participants registered, that attended the discussions. 450 side events, including 135 in this blue zone area, which is where a lot of the decision makers were present. 10 ocean action panels, 800 voluntary commitments were registered, and this we discussed in the first presentation. These are non-legally binding. Yes, okay, so here I had some flags, icons, apologies for that. So nonetheless, the first ocean conference, which just took place, the latest one in 2025, was hosted by France and Costa Rica. So usually they compare sort of a global north for developed country and at least or less so developed, right? In Nice, we had the political declaration, the Nice Ocean Action Plan, which we discussed in our early presentation today. Followed in 2022, this was hosted by Portugal and Kenya in Lisbon, Portugal, with about 6,200 participants, 300 side events, 8 interactive dialogues, so the name changes a little bit, 741 voluntary commitments, and a political declaration. Lastly, in 2017, we had the Ocean Conference, the first one, hosted by Sweden and Fiji, but took place in New York, the United States, with about 6,000 participants, 150 side events, 1,300 voluntary commitments, 7 partnership dialogues, political declaration, and call for action. So we see sort of the overall evolution of the conference, and really the main bulk of voluntary commitments came in the first Ocean Conference with over 1,000 of this. But we have seen the same format in terms of the ocean action dialogues and so on, and the same similar outcome in terms of a political declaration with sort of this broader overarching key messages for the ocean. And this is important as we continue discussing. Next slide, please. So a noteworthy point in 2025 UN Ocean Conference, and we discussed some of these points already. It was heavy emphasis on achieving the agreement around the biodiversity beyond national jurisdictions. There was also heavy talk on the 30 by 30, but recall and understand that in 2017, this was actually seen as 20 by 20. So it's interesting to see some of the overall targets sort of shift forward as the times continue. And this is important also moving forward. The plastics treaty is particularly critical and heavily discussed as well. Finance, of course, is a big aspect that we're all very interested in and very important to really catalyze action. Science and knowledge, sustainable blue economy, wide reach and participation, and of course, many other topics, fisheries and aquaculture, food security and nutrition, right? Law of the sea, all these components. And I mean, there's a lot to talk about in terms of all the different topics and discussions that took place at the UN Ocean Conference. It's hard to cover them all here, but I just wanted to give you a sense of some of the highlighted topics that I wanted to also further dive into. Next slide. Thank you. So I want to go a little bit more into sort of the analysis from my end, having been, again, from working with governments and countries and having also worked with the United Nations at the level of these international engagements, which, as we heard, are very critical, very important, and much needed to build network and to really build momentum and overall consensus around the oceans. Very important for this day and age with all the different geopolitical circumstances of the moment. However, I do believe, and I have seen it myself on the ground, that these strategic investments and policies, they can drive change, positive change for the oceans, but there's a key caveat here. These lessons, innovations, and everything else from the global discourse need to trickle down to national and community level. This is particularly important because we have a lot of needs still in countries, right? So here I want to talk about, for example, domestic policies and investments. They need to be designed with the people in mind, with those communities that are actually in need and actually will have an impact on. So they need to align with the needs on the ground. Additionally, policies, domestic policies at all levels, need to include the inputs from stakeholders, especially underrepresented communities and indigenous communities. And this is something that we are very well versed on at the international level, bringing all the stakeholders and having all the different engagements and discussions. But at the national level, many countries are still struggling with this, right? Policies are usually developed at a higher political level, not necessarily with the input not only of the people, but also of the sectors of the blue economy that need to all align. So it's important to understand that we have a global idea of what it is needed for our ocean and our future, but this also needs to trickle down at the national level and at the community level. Policies, as we have understood already, they need to be science-driven, but this is key, they need to have a complementarity with traditional ecological knowledge and knowledge on the ground of communities. This is valid knowledge and understanding of the local reality. And if we need to be honest with each other and ourselves about the need to have science bridge the gaps and bring really the understanding across the groups. Science usually exists on its own sphere, which is great for a specific quality of the research, but not always does science one takes into account the local perspectives and peoples and knowledge, but also doesn't always actually directly link to policymakers or investments or solutions. So there's many gaps still here that we need to work on. Next slide, please. On investments, this is particularly critical. As we all know, investments are very much needed. SDG 14 has a
Jorge, we are not currently hearing you.
Jorge,
Are you hearing us?
can you hear us?
Just give me 1 second. I will try from my side.
Okay, is there?
Okay.
Okay, here is. Hello, Jorge.
Just 1 second.
The connection seems to be quite patchy from his part, I think.
How about now, Jorge? Could you try? You are in the meeting with 2 instances. That might be the issue.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
now we're hearing you.
Yes, sorry, I
Perfect.
had to join the audio with my mobile. Okay, so very briefly, sorry about the technical difficulties. It's always something, unfortunately, my apologies. $8.7 billion were pledged. However, this needs to also trickle down to the country level. So very key important lessons here is that we must break away from the cycle of dependency of ODA finance, right? Official development assistance finance here. This is the ones that come from the international community. And really include more confidence for the private sector and local financial institutions. Vertical finance, this is the finance that again comes from international institution and comes with a very strict level of requirements to access. These mechanisms should be streamlined, making it easier to access by governments and communities. This vertical finance aspect is particularly important. A lot of folks depend on this money to really develop their initiatives in countries, but it's hard to access. De-risking and blending approaches at the national level is also key here, right? We have all these international commitments, but if at the national and domestic level, we're not de-risking these investments and setting up the enabling environment for private sector and MSMEs to take over, then it's they don't necessarily go far. Likewise, supporting small, medium-scale enterprises is particularly important in countries, really. And this is important to analyze the level of supply and demand for finance in a country, support businesses to develop their business plans and so on, analyze the risks, and ensure shared prosperity. This is particularly important, something that doesn't always trickle down at the domestic level. Next slide, please. Moving forward, accountability for these 800 voluntary commitments, and that's just this year. Remember, we have many more. We have thousands of these voluntary commitments. We need to have a little bit more accountability on this. We need to have a much more follow-up and support for this. And I believe these networks that we discussed here today, including the Ocean Action, communities of Ocean Action, and other networks, are particularly important to really push these commitments forward and to check in on them and touch base and ensure that the progress is being made in the right manner. We have frameworks discussed at the international level, such as the BBNJ framework, the biodiversity beyond national jurisdictions, which is particularly important. But we must not forget that we still need to make progress, good, positive progress in countries within national jurisdictions. Within the exclusive economic zone of countries, there's still a lot of support that's needed. So even though these international frameworks are important, we must not take away the need and the importance to support the domestic and the national work. 30 by 30 aspirations, the marine protected area aspirations for countries globally is important. But again, I think we need to go beyond only announcing marine protected areas and really start working on implementation, demarcation, implementation, monitor and evaluation. And this requires finance, this requires technical capacity, and particularly technology transfers and so on for countries, especially SIDS countries. Moving beyond plastics is important, of course, the plastics treaty, but we also need to make sure to include the private sector in the discussions much more so and prominently, and really discuss streamlined, suitable, affordable, and environmentally viable solutions. So my message here is let's, bring down the messages from the global discourse and understand how these actually are applied on the ground. Next slide, and this is my last slide. Thank you. So just quick takeaway points. We need to, again, translate this global discourse to local action. Work to establish complementarity between science and local knowledge, and traditional knowledge is very important. Upscale support for domestic policy and formulation and execution. For this, we have national ocean policies, sectoral policies that need to also be reworked and aligned, and have a truly participatory plan or special plan moving forward. Finally, we need to streamline this access to to finance from both the public and the private sector, and really make it available in a suitable format that's easy to access. And that's it from my end. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jorge. I'm just gonna quickly stop the presentation. It was quite the powerful presentation and very forward-looking perspective on UNOC Free and what the next steps are. I've seen a very interesting, I've seen quite a couple of mentions of funding and finance already in the chat, and I think you are no stranger to such questions. Maybe you could tell us more about the difficulties for countries and communities to access various sources of finance?
Yes, of course, very much so. So again, having worked for the World Bank for 7 years, I have worked with countries and communities to design these interventions and investments for the blue economy. However, these are usually work with at the government level with different ministries and different key stakeholders. And in many instances, small island developing states, for example, are very busy, right? They're very small teams. They're very overwhelmed already with their own work. So really working on these big projects from international community sometimes is not as prominent as they wish they could give it attention to. So this is one big factor that makes it applying and accessing this finance difficult. Not only that, but these processes take about 1 to 2 years to actually eventually roll out this finance to the projects that they want to roll out to. And this is, I've heard from many of our stakeholders and member states and so on, this is very cumbersome and very difficult and very heavy on them. Now, I have worked in projects, for example, in Peru and the Galapagos and other countries where the access to finance is first and foremost perhaps catalyzed by these international funds, but also much more engagement with local financial and credit institutions, or particularly small and medium scale enterprises in the blue economy. And this is particularly important because there needs to be a sense of confidence by the investors on the ground at the domestic level, backed by this international finance, so that they can roll out also microcredits and finance at the domestic level. Of course, there's also the aspect of blending and de-risking these investments. And this is, I believe, a role that philanthropic community and foundations now are playing much more so these days, right? In terms of rolling out easier to access grants and finance for the small guy, for the little communities, the little guys, those that are looking to start different businesses, and those that are also ready and have the backing, right? So this is also going to be important to be able to engage with. And moving forward, there's going to be many modalities as well to understand, to analyze, and to take advantage of, particularly, for example, with the new fund for biodiversity that came out of the last COP for biodiversity last year and so on in Colombia. So it's going to be very important to keep an eye on these different finance mechanisms and try to access different pools of money as best as possible. And of course, this requires a lot of technical capacity as well. But this network, such as the ECOP, as we heard before, those have, and also the UNESCO Decade for Science and Research, has a lot of resources to understand what's the landscape of finance out there. So it does require sustained work. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I know that a lot of people in our audience today are also interested in what practical things and what tools are available for comprehensively planning and enacting impact in the blue economy. Could you talk to us just a little bit very quickly on the tools that are currently available to us?
Yes, of course. So, you know, there's tools at the different levels. We have these tools at the international level of convening, of frameworks, of declarations, and so on, right? But again, we need to trickle down at the national level, from policy to action on the ground in countries. And for one of the key tools, of course, we already might be aware of this, is the aspect of marine spatial planning. So this geospatial analysis, hello? Oh, this aspect of geospatial planning is particularly important as well as a tool to be able to bring in stakeholders across the spectrum and really plan collaboratively together the way forward. However, one key aspect that I want to warn folks listening is that often we think of marine spatial planning as the planning of the exclusive economic zone of the ocean space. But I strongly believe we need to have a complementarity as well with the coastal and the inland space. So we need to have a more comprehensive and integrated planning approach. So have coastal and marine spatial planning, or integrated coastal zone management together with marine spatial planning, so that we can actually understand not only what the impacts are on the ocean, but also what's coming from inland. So just pollution, right? 80% or so of plastic pollution comes from inland sources. So really, without understanding what's happening inland in a watershed, it's going to be very difficult then to manage the coastal and the marine space itself. So really, this integrative approach is a key tool for governments, particularly to have and to roll out. But for this, they need the support of local communities, right? So for local communities itself, some of the practical tools out there as well are these networks of incubators and networks of also finance accelerations and so on that support small and medium scale enterprises. This is also a key tool that we already have, of course, known about. And it's important to also continue supporting this and continue working with these local actors in finance to be able to support the innovative solutions that folks in the local communities are working towards. Of course, there's many aspects that we can discuss, but I believe we might want to keep the discussions rolling. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Jorge. You've brought to us a wealth of practical experience and quite a few takeaways as well, practical takeaways. Thank you so much for that. With that, we conclude today's panel presentations. It's been quite a bit of a journey from the science policy interface to empowering early career ocean professionals and unlocking blue economy solutions. Rebecca, Evgeniia, and Jorge have given us quite a rich and timely overview of just a few of the many pathways forward following UNOC 3. Unfortunately, we are running very low on time. Could I take a chance to invite our three speakers in the same order as the presentations to just leave us with just a golden takeaway that they had from UNOC 3, the most important salient point that came of that experience? Rebecca, would you like to start?
Sure. Thanks, Cosmin. I think, as also came out of my talk, I think personal connections are key. It's just, and online meetings are also nice, but meeting people, getting in touch, understanding each other, it's really key also to advance, and I think also very important for multilateralism and creating a good environment. Thanks.
Evgeniia?
Well, actually, I'll be talking about the same point as Rebecca. Yeah, I really wanted to highlight that personal connections are key, because behind every successful project, I think there are people. So I would say I value and nurture your personal connections.
Hi, colleagues.
Jorge?
I hope you can hear me this time. I hope everything's good. Likewise, here, as Rebecca had mentioned, I have mixed feelings about the Ocean Conference, having been through the last two also. And I am hopeful, however, and I am very happy to see that the ocean continues to be a place that convenes people and really brings excitement and passion. And I think we shouldn't lose sight of what's important, including, of course, the people, the communities, the networks, and also keep in mind the possibilities moving forward in terms of innovation and in terms of action on the ground. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you to the speakers. I've seen that you've already answered some questions in the chat. Unfortunately, time is running very low, and I would like to invite to formally conclude this event Dr. Auni Benham, who is the honorary president of the IOI, and a very familiar face to a lot of people in the audience. Auni, the floor is yours. Familiar and beloved face.
Thank you very much. I now realize the mistake I made because I voluntarily didn't want to go to the conference in Nice. I think after 40 years of these experiences, I might have lost something by not going. However, I really want to congratulate you on the way that you have absorbed the basis and the critical issues that would help us make the results of your efforts available and operational. I was fascinated by the ECOP system also, and how it affects, a critical mass that would influence future decision. I worry very much about the approach to financing, but I hope that you can reach your objective. ECOP fascinates me. And there's only one issue which I always harp on in the making of ECOPs, is the moral clarity. We need to go forward, not hoping and hiding, but being honest and free and safeguarding the moral clarity and helping this world of ours. If we believe in the SDGs, then we should be there in full force. And this perhaps, and thank you, really thank you for opening up our mind to alternatives and the work that you do. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Auni. And with that ends our webinar for today. The next one will be in about 3 months, right, Antonella? Next quarter. And we very much look forward to having you there. We already have a couple of very exciting ideas. And hopefully next time the sharks will not be nibbling on the internet cables. Or so we hope. Thank
Okay.
you very much.
Thank
Goodbye,
Bye,
you.
everyone.
Evgeniia.
Bye. I
Thank
was
just
nice
want to
seeing you
remind
again.
you, yes, I
It was
just
very
want to
nice to meet
remind
you.
you that if you check back on our IOI Alumni webpage in a couple of days' time, Cosmin will have put up the recording and you'll be able to see this recording at your own leisure again if you have questions and things like that. So, and always you can get back in touch with us through ioihq@ioihq.org.mt for any more news around this event and this series. Thank you.
Thank you, boss.
Thanks, Rebecca. Thanks, Auni, Jorge, Evgeniia,
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
everyone.
Cosmin.
Thank you,
And I
everybody.
just
Take
added
care.
the link that Antonella mentioned in the chat. Goodbye, everyone. Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye bye.
Thank you. Thanks for being with us.